Hello, everybody. Hello, good evening. We're going to start in a few minutes. So grab a snack and grab something to drink. We're going to put ourselves live on Facebook and we will start in a couple of minutes. Welcome to Blockchain Chat, all about the business of blockchain. Hello, Eric. How you doing tonight?
Good, Tree. How about yourself? How you doing?
Doing good, thank you.
Great. Glad to hear that.
Tonight's conversation is right up your alley, Eric. You and Talisha, I know that she's not here, but you all talk about governance all the time. So for those of you who don't know what governance is, we're going to talk about it. It's a fancy term, but a very simple meaning. Basically, how does it work and how do we make changes to it if we need to? That is what governance is within the blockchain space. And it's a very, very important conversation. And there are going to be billionaires made from people who know how to deal with governance in the token economy. So we are all about the business of blockchain here. You are in the right place tonight. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Make sure you got your wine, your beer, your liquor, your water, like I do. Get some dinner together. And I was a very, very bad leader of the organization today because I got the information together. I usually highlight at like 6:30, and I had another webinar, and then I got an urgent phone call, and I only got through like a third of highlighting articles. So
Right. Sheree, you're never a bad leader. Please, Sheree, don't say that about yourself. You are never a bad leader. Come on now. Correct.
We are going to have to roll with it tonight. But I did read all the articles earlier today, yesterday actually, as I had suggested this topic to the team. And so I knew things about blockchain governance, but I didn't know a lot about it. And I'm glad that I think an article came up in my feed about governance and blockchain. And I'm glad that I went a little bit down the rabbit hole because of it, because, you know, it's something that we hadn't really talked about within 10K. Sorry, oh my gosh, within BBC, within Black Blockchain Consultants. So that's tonight's conversation, is to talk about this. So it's 7:33 officially, so we will get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Black Blockchain Consultants. If you are all about the business of blockchain, you are in the right place. At BBC, we focus on 4 things. Number 1, if you want a blockchain job, how can you get one? Number 2, if you want to start a blockchain-based business, there are going to be billionaires created and multimillionaires created. We want our people to be some of them. Number 3, how can you invest in the blockchain, whether you're investing time or money into a project, how to know the lingo and know what projects are out there and what you would even want to get behind. And then number 4, how to gain generational wealth from this $3.1 trillion plus industry that is forthcoming. With everything happening with COVID, it has taken everything with technology and accelerated it tremendously. We talked last week or 2 weeks ago about the PwC report saying that they expect blockchain to be mainstream by 2025. Other people are expecting anywhere from 2023 to 2025. That means we do have time to get our stuff together, but it's important for us to really think about how do we leverage this time. Also, in a way, there's no better time to be Black and in business than right now, because VCs now are starting to have line items for minorities and the amount of money that they are investing in Black-owned businesses specifically. So, there's no better time. People are looking for us. People are actually contacting us, contacting Dr. Keisha, saying, hey, how can we do something with Black blockchain consultants? So, it's a great time to be here. Also, next Monday, for all of our members, we are having book club. Eric, do you have your copy of The Real Business of Blockchain nearby?
Wait, hold on. It's always right here.
So we have been studying The Real Business of Blockchain book, and if you are a member, we go into The Real Business of Blockchain. So that is next Monday at, I want to say 8 p.m. Is when that is going to happen. I'll send out an email to everybody. It's either 7:30 or 8 o'clock, but I'll make sure to send an email to everyone. Actually, I sent the email yesterday with regards to it, or this morning, but we'll send a reminder email as well. So that's happening on Monday. Also, what we've decided to do 2 to 3 times a quarter is have a mastermind meeting session. We had a very successful one a couple of weeks ago, and we, as the officers of BBC, have decided that that is going to be the way that we bring the most value to our members. So if you're not a member, you want to join BBC, you can come to blockchainstudies.tech. And there is either membership, or you can take the Blockchain 101 course as a bundle as well. That is blockchainstudies.tech. The final thing is we are planning a virtual conference around tokenization. The tokenization economy is our working title for it. We're going to have speakers come in and talk about the business of tokenization. We're going to have demos around tokenization platforms that people can be a part of. And ultimately, if you were a part of that SymbaChain group where we had a deal with SymbaChain, and it was smart contracts, and you built a portfolio of smart contracts using the SymbaChain software, we're going to do the same thing with tokenization. We're talking with a couple of different companies that are tokenization platforms, and we're going to have a 3-month session where you're going to build a portfolio of tokenization projects. And our goal within BBC is to set our members up so that you have a portfolio that then you're able to display to the world and either get contracting gigs or get jobs by saying, look, I had these three scenarios, these 3 case studies, this is what I created, I've tinkered around in it, and we're taking things from the theoretical to the practical. That is the goal for 2021. Do me a favor, put a yes in the chat if you like it. Put a yes in the chat if you like it. If you don't, send me an email, info@blackblockchainconsultants.com. Let me know what you think needs to be updated, changed, etc. Good, I'm seeing yeses. That is where we're headed. And I will tell you more of where we're headed. We're looking at dominating 3 areas. Number 1 is smart contracts. So if you missed the SymbaChain, don't worry about it. Smart contract training and portfolio development is coming again. Number 2, tokenization. We're going to dominate in tokenization. We're going to do these sessions where we're going to get our hands dirty in a platform and come up with 3 different case studies and have people work on the case studies. That way you're able to take stuff from the theoretical to the practical, and then you're able to get paying gigs, paying jobs. That's what I want to hear from people. Number 3 is security. Blockchain security is also what we're working on. We, as a people, as BBC people, want to dominate those areas. And number 4, in 2021, we're going to do a massive, massive amount of potential member outreach, saying this is what we're doing. If people want to be a part of our ecosystem, then that's what we're doing. We're prepping our people for the new economy within blockchain. Eric, should I add anything to that? Was there something I forgot? Anything like that?
No, I mean, I think that's it, because just as we're going to talk about governance tonight, tokenization, and this is why this area is just, I mean, this blockchain period is just so explosive, because there's so much creativity whenever we have all of the intellectual capital coming into the space. I heard the investor Paul Tudor Jones say that that was one of the things that he most underestimated about Bitcoin itself, was the intellectual capital of so many smart people descending into one area. And what happens is, as that happens, each of these attributes of blockchain, whether it's governance or tokenization, begins to take on new life, and begins to take on even a far greater significance and impact than what people thought previously. So it's going to be great for us to explore this, and for everyone, as we come together. And I always talk about collective genius, as we come together, as a collective, and talk about these things and have a discourse about it. I think is just always incredibly fruitful. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't even realize, like I said, about blockchain governance and how it has changed so much in the past 18 months or so, 2 years, until I started doing research on it, and how it will continue to change, and it will be a multi-billion-dollar industry. So Johnny has a great question here. I am new to the blockchain consultants. Welcome, Johnny. Other than engaging in Flock, what are my next steps? So great question. Number one is make sure you take a Blockchain 101 class. Make sure you understand all the terminology. I always tell people to pick a, can everyone put it in the chat? Pick a, I'm going to have everyone sing it in virtual unison. Let me see here. Pick a major. Yes, pick a major. Okay, so Johnny, this is how we work within BBC. If you've ever been to college, freshman and sophomore year, you learn general studies, right? General studies within BBC is taking Blockchain 101, coming to these weekly sessions, learning an overview of what's happening in the blockchain industry with tokenization, with security, with different forms of blockchain industries and industries and how they're going to be affected by blockchain. In junior year in college, you usually pick a major and you go deep with something. And that's how you become a blockchain consultant. And that's how you really develop yourself as a talent, so that you can sell your services for hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars per day. So there are different expertises that you can have. One type of expertise is you can choose something like smart contracts or tokenization or blockchain security that's specific to the blockchain industry. You can also choose, let's say if you're in healthcare already, or HR or education, we have people like that that are saying, how is blockchain going to affect these specific industries that I'm already in? And you can become the blockchain consultant for that. There are other ways that you can pick a major, but one of the biggest things I would suggest to you, Johnny, is to take your general studies and then pick a major. You can also get involved, if you decide to, with what I was talking about with the different, we're calling them tracks right now, or courses or something like that. We're still working on a name for it, but the different tracks where you can, again, take the demo. We're going to be talking to different companies and saying, look, we're bringing a group of people on your platform. We want a great rate for it. And in exchange for that, we not only want the great rate, but we also want extra teaching and, to be handled with kid gloves and all of that, and extra training. And you can get involved with those. So the three that we're going to have are smart contracts, tokenization, and security. Those are going to be the three that we're going to have. And if you decide that you want one of those to be your major, then one of the best things you can do is connect with Dr. Keisha Waddell and say, hey, I've studied all of these things, but I'm really, really into tokenization, for example. And then she'll be able to let you know when those opportunities are coming up so that you can join. Oh, we started calling them cohorts. That's actually what I think the name we were going for the incubator thought. The final thing, Johnny, is 2 to 3 times a quarter, we're going to have a mastermind. It's closed door, just for members only. Everyone comes on, you know, we talk about what our projects are. The last time we had this, people, you know, got clarity on what should be their major, on what the next steps are, on how they can make money in 2021, all of those things. So I know I've given you a lot, but hopefully you've gotten some clarity with regards to some of the ways that you are able to really access what we're doing and profit from it, because nothing means more to me than for you to come and say, hey, Cherie, I built $1 million business because of BBC. Like, I will be jumping up and down more than you, and then I'll ask you for a testimonial. So that is what we're looking to do. Eric, did I forget anything? Because I think Johnny's question is so vital, and we want to make sure that people are plugged in.
No, that was it. Yeah, no, like you hit on all the points. And yes, the more that you are able to get involved in, and then yes, like having those ideas and then having a discourse about it within the group and people giving you feedback, I think it's just incredibly valuable. So.
Yeah. And we are planning. So I will say that this epiphany has been 3 years in the making. We've, you know, we are growing as a group, just like blockchain is growing. So we're going to have more demos in 2021. Dr. Keisha's in charge of that. We're going to have more of us getting our hands on certain types of software and being able to use it, and actually taking stuff from the theoretical, because everything we talk about on Wednesdays is more of the top level, you know, industry overview stuff, and really, really getting our hands involved in it, because that's the only way we're going to make some big money in it, is to do that. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And let's have a conversation about blockchain governance. Okay, so this is an intro to blockchain governance here. Now, the articles that I found about these were from 2018, at least the good ones, but I think that the information is still valid with regards to governance. So at a high level, blockchain governance refers to the mechanisms by which decentralized networks adapt and change over time. While blockchain networks should be intelligently designed, it's only natural that new considerations are uncovered once a protocol has been tested by the public. Problems can specifically arise in the face of competition. If users begin to crowd around a different set of features that they find superior, should a network adapt to match those demands? Network features like inflation rates, privacy, and consensus rules are continuously debated and can only be iterated after real-world usage. Fred Ersam made an excellent case for why a blockchain network's ability to evolve and upgrade amidst ongoing development will be the key differentiator for whether or not it can survive the competing interests vying for its control. Blockchain governance is rooted in the fact that the interests of a network stakeholders change as they interact with and generate value from the network. Stakeholders are naturally self-servant, and their main goal is for the network to operate in their favor. As such, these systems need processes to relinquish these differences if they are to survive. So, let's start with that, Eric. What I got from this was, as first of all, blockchain, one of the things within the business of blockchain is meant to be decentralized. And you need people to use it and to feel like it's effective, and it's giving them what they need in order for them to continue to use it. So as people begin to use things, their needs for the network changes, the rules that they want to have the rules that we had within BBC 3 years ago, or the way it was structured 3 years ago, is different from the way it's structured now. That happens with any business, that happens with any group, anything, etc. Governance always changes. And what I got from this is people are starting to say that within the blockchain and within the protocols, governance, meaning the rules, need to change as well. And there needs to be an easier way for these rules to change. And we're going to go through a little bit more some of the ways that people are tackling this issue. But Eric, what do you think about this thus far?
Okay, here, a couple things. One, and I think they're going to touch on this a little bit as I think in the next paragraph, but they mentioned that one of the things is when it's having this programmable, it allows a lot more flexibility than what we see in, I don't want to say the real world, but you kind of know what I mean.
Yes.
When we look at it, and when we look at a lot of um, our our governmental systems, and it doesn't matter. It can go from what we see at the federal government, state, local, even to your local HOA, and how difficult it can be, and how much when people get just locked in on, okay, this is what we've always done. We're just going to keep doing it this way. Just recently we had a Supreme Court justice who was confirmed, and
Mhm.
part of the uh, when during her confirmation hearing, it was about the issue of constitutional originality, and you had this kind of warring effect where some people say no, we should only read the Constitution in the same way and the belief that the framers had, and others are like, no, things have changed, and it should be much more adaptable,
Mhm.
and so we see that kind of that kind of collision take place, and I see this because now we have systems now that are able to acclimate themselves into the adaptability that as us as human beings, that's how we work, where we go, you know what, everyone, hey, we don't have to do it that way. We don't always agree it that way. I think we've kind of changed, and we've kind of learned that that wasn't very effective. Let's do some course correction. And blockchain allows us to be able to do that at a much quicker and rapid pace than what a lot of these other systems are able to, um, the way that they operate. So that point itself, I just believe that's why we talk about it as a real 21st century scale application that a lot of people will be able to really apply into the systems in which they are working in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at Facebook here. I want to make sure there's no comments here. Um, so the difference between the US though is I'm not giving up my blue passport, but I would give up a blockchain protocol if it didn't serve me, right?
Right.
So, the the way that the world works and will work 50 years from now is that it's going to be easier for people to change, change protocols, change banks. I don't like this digital bank. I'll go to, I can get on my laptop now or get on my cell phone and change, from one bank to another bank or things like that. I think there are things that we haven't even seen before that it's just going to be easier to change. Like right now, I have to go close an account. I have to schedule time to go to the bank to sign the documents, for this
Yeah.
specific account won't let me close it without going there. And I'm looking at my schedule like, when am I going to do this? But
Yeah.
it's on my schedule. We're going to get to a point where people are going to say, oh no, forget that. If I want to close an account, I just want to click a button.
Yeah. I am the
Um,
bank. I'm done. That's
yeah, exactly. And we will be the bank. Exactly. So let's see. They talk here about on-chain versus off-chain governance. So on-chain governance refers to a process in which protocol upgrades happen automatically in response to coin voting. In these systems, token holders vote on measures directly with the network's intrinsic token. The votes are calculated directly by the protocol, and subsequent outcomes occur autonomously. This relationship between coin voting and code changes is commonly referred to as being tightly coupled. And then they give an example here. Off-chain governance, on the other hand, refers to a process in which network stakeholders coordinate amongst themselves informally to decide how network upgrades are handled. Most networks today employ off-chain systems. The most common process looks something like this. Developers submit changes through formal improvement proposals. Network stakeholders coordinate through community channels, whether subreddits, email forums, and social media. Protocol developers integrate new features. Node operators signal their support or dissent for the changes, and miners decide which chain to secure. So I see pluses and minuses to both of these. I want to give it, before Eric answers, I want to toss it to the community here. What do you think is a positive and a negative of off-chain versus on-chain?
Hey, Sheree, like, by the way, I see Percy and Richard in the chat. If any one of you gentlemen want to join us, feel
Oh,
free.
please, yes.
Yeah, so listen,
Feel
like,
free.
yeah, put your hand up. So
Yeah, or just put in the chat and I'll bring you guys up.
Yeah.
Or anybody else. I mean, look.
Yes, totally.
We're open. So
yeah.
I wanted to see if anyone saw what I saw with the cons to both of these. Okay, maybe you all are still typing. Okay, Percy saying, oh, leaving early. Okay, well, that's fine, Percy. We'll catch you at another time. The biggest thing, and I guess I'll start with a question for you, Eric. With the on-chain governance, it doesn't say on here if a person has more coins, more tokens, do they have more voting power? Versus if it's truly decentralized, one vote, one person, right? That would be a con to me with the on-chain governance. I like the on-chain governance by just this, this section here, but that was a big glaring flag, red flag for me. With the on-chain governance, the con to me seems to be that you have to go through so many layers of approval that it ends up being bureaucratic. So I have no idea how they're going to solve this or anything like that, but I immediately see the cons in both of these. What do you think?
Well, yes, I mean, those are the issues. And what I will say is they are being actively working on it. As far as for Ethereum, we know that Ethereum is moving from proof of work to proof of stake. And in order to, have a staking node, you will need to stake 32 Ethereum, which I guess you can add that up. I think Ethereum was maybe like,
it was like $9 grand.
Something like that.
Yes, isn't it about $300 now?
Yeah,
it's like $350 a coin.
Yeah, almost 400, somewhere around there. So
okay.
Yeah, so you look at it, and then there will be also a technological art that you'll need to bring that into play too, because you'll need to be on the network for a certain period of time, and if for whatever reason you go down, you will be hit with a penalty, and you could potentially lose your stake in that. But then there is a point of, okay, well, wait a minute, how do we stop this from one wealthy individual or potentially someone who bought into Ethereum very, very early, and they have a lot, from them being able to run multiple staking nodes and be able to take over a greater portion of the network. Now, what I have heard is from everything from Vitalik is they have taken all of this into consideration. And taking it all into consideration, they are doing everything possible to mitigate that so that it is as fair and as equitable as possible. So
Right.
that's one of the things too. I guess I say that about the space that I do love it is a lot of the times when listen, any kind of human-made created system, there's always going to be problems. But what I do like and appreciate is the recognition of the problem, and then you have everyone kind of coming together to work to solve that problem.
Exactly.
And also and also looking ahead as possible. And going, hey, you know what? This really could be a problem down the road. What are we going to do now to get ahead of this thing? And I just really do, I really like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is from Block Geeks here again, talking about the beginner's guide to blockchain governance. And um, they again describe governance as a structure that every user or participant agrees to follow. Everything we use is under some form of governance. Its core purpose is to meet the user or participant's needs with available resources as efficiently as possible and achieve the long-term sustainability of the structure. It applies to any type of group, be it in the real world or digital. Therefore, for any kind of institution, organization, or service, especially as it grows, governance becomes increasingly indispensable. The governance style also needs to keep evolving to be relevant to the current need, but this is far easier said than done. Then they have here two different governance formats. They talk about direct and representative. So direct governance, as the name suggests, in its purest sense, is direct. Every participant or user will directly vote on every decision and any action need to be undertaken, no exception. So the pros, every vote actually counts. Since there's no intermediary, it offers total transparency. They have some other things here I would suggest you read. I'm going to put the blockchain link in the chat. They also mention some cons. Often proves to be very difficult to reach consensus. It can be costly due to the need of educating everyone on the topic and the voting process. Some people can be unwilling to participate. People can use their emotions, or some people can play on other people's emotions. And then as the group grows in size, that could also be a problem. There's also representative governance as well. In this model, all users or people vote to elect a few as their representatives who would take all governing decisions on their behalf, i.e. our elected officials who are not doing the best job. But the pros are it's more efficient, decisions can be made faster. I don't know about that, depends on the people. It's comparatively easier to address any problem. Usually the final decisions are very balanced. So the cons, representatives may work in their self-interest once they are elected. They may not play according to the people's trust. Some sections of the users or people will always be unhappy with the decision since it benefits the majority. And there's an inherent lack of accountability among representatives. So, and then they talk further here about what is blockchain governance and why it's so important. Again, I'm going to put this in the chat here for people to definitely take a look at. But Eric, let's move back to the pros and cons of direct versus representative. What do you think about these two?
I mean, when you do think about it, as far as for direct governance, I believe that this is much more where we are trending towards, where every vote counts, every voice counts, every person is having their interests represented, and so I do see it being. I believe that we're just much more acceptable. And not just acceptable. I think that this is what we're looking for now is for it to work that way. And I guess you would look at representative governance. I mean, that's electoral college.
It is.
You
It's
know?
the, it makes sense in theory, but then in practice, we've seen, representative governance. I can say I'm in favor of a direct governance with regards to this is voting day, and if you don't vote, you lose, you snooze, you lose. Other than that, everybody has a chance to come in and give their say. And I do think it is important for those who feel a certain way about a decision to educate those who they feel are quote unquote less educated. And I'll use a political structure as an example. There are more people who are non-voters in this country than who vote.
Mhm.
And there are people who say, well, if they, would just do this or just do that or just understand, that this is important to them or whatever. And my question is always, okay, but have you gone and sat with that person or with a group of individuals like that and really listened to them, understood their concerns, expressed why it would be helpful to them? If you haven't, then, they have the right to vote whatever way that they vote. I'm just a personal, it just like irks me that um, that people who strongly believe one way or the other, and I'm a nonpartisan person, but one way or the other, don't take some of the personal responsibility to say, hey, I'm going to go into these areas to educate people, or at least present what I believe to, different types of individuals in order to get them to understand where I'm coming from. So,
I
um,
mean, Sheree, let me just say this. Listen, and this is why this is important,
mhm,
especially in the blockchain and in these technologies. Is listen, everyone, we are all going to have different perspectives about life and about how things should operate, and we have an opportunity then to deploy this technology and use it in the way that most represents our interests. But I I will say, Sheree, to your point. Um, you would be surprised at how many people don't assume everyone does know. And I don't care if they're in office or
mhm.
they're elected and they have multiple letters behind their name or whatever. Don't assume that they are incredibly educated about the myriad of issues that are taking place that are affecting your life and the problems within a certain neighborhood, a certain community. Don't assume that, because
Mhm.
many times, like they are like they're just like all the rest of us. They have a limited amount of time and they use their time in a certain way. So that, like to your point, that is a very important um, way of really just, and we talk a lot about self-advocating of doing
Yeah,
that. So yes.
it is. It is. So, um, I have a couple of comments here. Percy is saying, in general, on-chain governance seems a bit more straightforward, and rules based on off-chain governance, in my understanding, is much more informal and would be prone to people manipulating decisions, but he could be wrong, though. I think you're right. I think that is the overall consensus that we have. Um, and then Richard's saying, I like direct governance, every voice matters. Yeah, so every voice matters. There is the con of, you have to go and educate those with regards to why we're making this decision or why we're suggesting this decision be made a certain way. However, at the end of the day, I don't have the right to tell somebody that they can't vote differently from me. I just personally, I believe that if you do not present your case in such a way that the person says, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense and that would help me, that's partially on you. Um, so we have a final story here with regards to, this is why this came up, because this came across my feed. Boardroom raises $2.2 million for blockchain governance tool set. And let's take a look at this article here. I didn't have a chance to highlight it, but we're going to read it really quickly. So the Blockchain Governance Suite Boardroom has announced a $2.2 million funding round led by Standard Crypto, with additional participation by Variant, Coin Fund Framework, and Slow Ventures. Quote, "We are seeing an accelerating volume of protocols interested in public governance enter the market each month," says Jake Bruckman of Coin Fund. Boardroom provides a simple interface for token holders to participate in votes on different blockchains or dApps whose tokens the user holds. So I thought this was pretty interesting. This is the interoperability that we've been talking about. Quote here, "It's clear to us that engaged and informed community governance is a distinguishing characteristic of successful crypto networks. But from a user point of view, the experience is quite painful." Alec Vasudev says, co-founder of Standard Crypto. "Boardroom makes it easy for users to participate in protocol governance, from voting to delegating to staying informed, by providing a common interface across multiple protocols. With delegating built in, Boardroom should accelerate the era of so-called protocol politicians, those who follow the nuances of each blockchain's governance more closely than smallholders often have time for. We believe crypto networks will uproot traditional management and ownership structures. They have already demonstrated a powerful new economic model for building software applications wherein users build and operate products and services they use every day. Boardroom is designed to be a solution for blockchain participation that can scale with the growth of crypto communities." So it says here, the last sentence, "Blockchain sits in the middle of this emerging ecosystem, lowering the cost of governance and helping to foster a new era of protocol politicians." So again, I thought this was interesting. I'm like, wow, you know, this is, there's going to be a lot of money made from blockchain governance and from something like this. And I was ignorant to the fact that this was as big as it was until I saw this article. And that was the reason why I said, hey, let's talk about governance tonight. So Eric, what do you think of not just Boardroom and what they're doing, but overall what we're seeing within the industry here?
Okay, this is where we're headed, and this is an important concept. I think that people really have to sink their teeth into and understand. Sherry, let me ask you a question. Are we streaming on Facebook right now?
Yes.
Are we streaming on Facebook? Okay, all right. So here's so here's where I'm going with this. Okay, Facebook itself is a company. Okay, where do they get their content from?
Regular people, all sorts of people.
Yeah, like us right now. So we are giving them content right now that is making their platform more valuable, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so are we received but the case is, do we own a part of that network that we increase the value?
Not unless you're a shareholder.
Right. So there you go. That it's funny too when we talk about the shareholders, because there, you know, you have a CEO, and I watched part of these CEOs today of Twitter and Facebook and Google.
The tech giants, yeah.
Yes, go before.
Like being fake grilled, yes.
Yeah, today. And it was interesting. There was so many conversations I had, you know, with myself as I was watching this. But, you know, one of the things, let me just say this, is the value in networks itself and the values that us as users create for networks. One of the things that I think even for Boardroom they're recognizing is we're getting to a point now where we're not only value creators, but we're actually owners of that network that we create value for. And that's where the arc is trending to. And that right now is funny. I'm just going to say this, you know, as you're looking at, and listen, I'm watching a lot of these senators grill some of these, you know, tech CEOs, and there was a certain senator who was talking to Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter, and he was really pinning him down of, Mr. Dorsey, basically the buck stops with you. You need to make these, like, this is decisions happening here. You should be able to tell us, what are you doing about it? Now, part of me, as I was watching that, was going, you know what? If this person knew about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, his head would explode. Where there is no one person.
Where there is no buck stops. Yes.
Yeah, there is no one person you're going to go to. No, like this is a protocol. We all own the network. We all use it. You pretty much can't shut it down. There is no one person that you're going to bring before and try to pin them down on this. So, but this is a point of where we are going. So everyone, and we begin even within BBC using the term of just the ownership economy itself. And this is where we're headed to. Well, with this is these token holders, their contributions to the networks make the networks themselves value, so they are thereby going to be owners of that network. If you look at Uniswap,
and more involved in the network too.
Right, exactly. If you look at Uniswap, and we saw, a few months ago, well, not even a few months, a couple months ago, where Uniswap, for anyone who would use their network, use their protocol at any point, whether you had bought anything on there at any point in time, you were airdropped 400 Uni tokens, and those Uni tokens are governance tokens. So you will be able to have a say-so in the network, in the platform, how it's used. You are thereby a owner of that network itself, because you have contributed value into the network itself. This is where we're trending. And this is a point where, as I see this, it's interesting too with Boardroom. I think that Boardroom is looking at this and saying, okay, and I think that they did mention, Tree, if you can pull up that article again,
Sure.
I think that they mentioned something about traditional corporate structures eventually moving on to this space itself. I think they mentioned that. Yeah, there you go. We believe in crypto networks will uproot traditional management and ownership structures. And yes, that's where it will be. And when we talk about tokenization, of course, we've talked previously just about, tokenizing certain assets, and, whether it could be a piece of real estate or a piece of art. And, people are tokenizing classic cars, and I've seen people tokenize wine barrels, all sorts of things. But there's also the point of the value that someone is able to place in, add into any system itself. Now we have a time where that value can be captured tangibly in a digital representation. And that value then can be returned then for the actual person who generated that value. And to me, I just believe that this is just a powerful concept that going forward, we're just going to see greater and greater applications of this take place. That's
right.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
So I put into the chat here the URL, crazy URL for this. This is the state of blockchain governance. It's written by Greenfield One. It's fairly recent, from the summer of this year. If you are interested, serious about blockchain governance, definitely take that URL and take a look at this. I want to get some feedback in, now it's 115 pages, but this is for my hardcore people.
Yeah.
I want to get some feedback from everyone before we go tonight. How are people going to make $1 billion from blockchain governance? Not just Black blockchain consultants, people, period. I have a couple of ideas in my head, but I want to get from you. Based on what we talked about tonight, there are going to be billionaires created because of blockchain governance. How? How? What's the area of opportunity that we're seeing? And as you all are typing in, I will make a statement, because Eric started talking about Facebook, and it got me thinking that Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and these other people are billionaires because they were able to put together a network, and they were able to, what do you call it? Be flexible with that network as the network grew, as the network changed, etc. MySpace is not around anymore. Why? Because it was not flexible as times changed. Um, well, not TikTok, Snapchat. Snapchat is the same thing, right? It was big for a while. You know, you had these other social networks that were growing, and then all of a sudden they crashed. One of the things, agile is the term I'm thinking of, is that Facebook and Instagram have remained because they've been agile. Victoria's saying the data, I feel like it's always about the data. That's a good part as well. So the interesting thing about tokenization is, in this truest sense, decentralized, people should be able to own their own data. But that doesn't mean you won't need gas. If you're familiar with that term, you won't need gas in order to be able to use that data in order to make additional money. But I personally was thinking that blockchain governance and the billionaires are going to be created through the ability for some of these protocols to be able to grow their networks and be agile with their networks, and the interoperability as well with this boardroom. And I'm sure they're not the only ones that are doing it. Also, people where you have a, you know, you've got some people that own a lot of the tokens, but then you have a whole lot of people that own, you know, a few tokens, either them being able to be quickly educated on what the vote is so that they're able to be a part of it, so that also they're re-engaged, because you do need, I'm thinking Facebook again, you do need that person coming on, like on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Some people come on a monthly basis in order for the network to work. So it's not just enough for the people and the protocols with a lot of the coins to be involved. You need the people with 4 or 5 tokens involved as well. And how do you do that? How do you re-engage people? I think a part of that is by getting them into voting again, and into the governance, and into understanding how the network is changing. So those were just a couple of things that I was thinking of. Richard is saying UI and the ability to serve the ever evolving need being met. Absolutely. User interface, user experience. Also people, as they are creating new token economies, new, you know, protocols, having somebody come on and just be able to educate them and all their users on the governance period, how the governance works, and then being able to, some people may need to audit the governance as well. Richard is saying consistent engagement with those who follow you is important. That's true. Those who follow you, those who are on the protocol, the network, etc. If it's not consistent, it's going to die. So there will be people who make millions of dollars just keeping people engaged, like community managers, keeping people engaged on certain protocols. Eric, what do you think? How can we use tonight to at least just understand, even if we aren't going to be the billionaires ourselves, because I don't think we should run after everything, but what do you see with the industry in terms of the business of blockchain and the billionaires being created through blockchain governance?
I mean, you notice they use that term in there, protocol politicians, you know, and they use that quite a bit. And that is for, you know, there was an article, Tree, you had sent it earlier. I know we didn't get a chance to cover it tonight. It was talking about 0x and the 0x protocol. And one of the things that the people, one of the creators of 0x protocol said is they see this as public infrastructure. Okay. So what I see is, as you begin to take these tools and to begin to utilize them and stack them up together, not as independent, separate pieces, but as almost as Legos. And then you begin to utilize them in your own life, in your own work life, however you choose to do so. That is one way that I believe that people can really begin to level up their lives. Sheree, like one of the things you mentioned earlier when I asked you about Facebook, and I said, hey, for the value that we give, who gets it? And you said the shareholders, which is absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an important thing to understand about this. The shareholders and the users who create value, that's not always in alignment together. The shareholders of Facebook can be like, yeah, go ahead, yeah, sell the data, sell it to Cambridge Analytica, yeah, and sell it and utilize it. And then, but us as users can say, no, that doesn't align because I didn't want my data being sold.
Mm-hmm.
I would have rather been consulted first about that. And how am I getting paid for you doing that? So these are one of the things too, which I believe as we begin to take all of these different protocols and components of blockchain and we begin to really bend them towards our own orientation and how we believe the world should operate. To me, like I can't give anyone a monetary figure in what they're going to make in their life, but I do believe that they do present a real possibility for someone to make some substantive changes in their situation.
I absolutely agree. Victoria's saying here, I imagine there's a lot of opportunity here for artificial intelligence as well. The automation of engagement, education could be lucrative, as could auto voting based on predictive analytics. I could be way off base though. No, I don't think anything is way off base. I do think that there could probably automation of engagement and education, definitely. Being able to ping people, people saying, hey, if there's a vote on this, like I own certain shares of stock where if there's a vote, I get a notice, right? You may get to a point where if there's a vote, hey, I want to be notified. I want a quick text message and outline, the what do you call it? The what we're voting on. And then let me click on a button and say yes or no to it. So yeah, Victoria, it's going to be interesting to see. Richard is saying there are always more users than shareholders. Without users, there will be no shareholders. That is true. I do personally believe that we need to be more shareholders. We need to be more shareholders in these things as well, and not just users.
Or Cherie, we could begin to create our own networks. Those networks that we create are based around the value that we give into these situations.
Or do both. I'm a fan of doing both.
I agree.
Yeah, I want us to have, our own over here, but then I also want to make money on everyone else's what they're doing too. I have no shame in that personally. So yeah, so with that, we are pretty much at our hour for our discussion today. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. Don't forget, Monday is book club night, Real Business of Blockchain. And, Talisha and Eric are going to be having that 8 o'clock on Monday, I believe is the time, but I'll send the email out again. And then also, we are working, Dr. Keisha is working on the virtual summit for us around the token economy. If you want to be on that committee in order to help with that, because you're your major is going to be tokenization, you probably want to get on the committee to work with Dr. Keisha on that. Reach out to her at Dr. Keisha Waddell in Flock. If you are a member, Richard is saying that's the beauty of blockchain, equal opportunity. I'll be there on Monday, camera ready. Perfect, Richard. Love it. Love it. So,
look forward
all righty then.
Nice.
So I want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Good night, everybody.